Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the Poet Speak podcast. Today, we have a special guest. Now, they are the author of Return, a winner of the Nightboat Poetry Prize, and I Watch the Boughs, selected by Gabrielle Calvocoressi for a Poetry Society of America Chapbook Fellowship, a former Margins Fellow at the Asian American Writers Workshop, the recipient of a Pushcart Prize. Her work has appeared in the Best American Poetry 2021, Best New Poets 2019, American Poetry Review, and elsewhere. She's done so much. Now she holds an MFA from Rutgers University, Newark. Please welcome to the podcast, Emily Lee Luan. Emily, how are you?
Oh my God, thanks for reading that long bio. I'm doing great. It's good to see you, Amanda.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. Now, did I pronounce your last name / surname? Did I pronounce it correctly? Emily Lee Luan.
Yeah, you did. I'm thrilled by that. I feel like often people ask me and then still mispronounce it. So yeah, all the flowers for you.
No, thank you. But all the flowers for you. I mean, reading off that bio, I mean, you're definitely not a little thing in this game. I mean, wow. First off, just congratulations on all the things you've accomplished. And we talked a little bit before I get into it. You just came back from AWP. And I'm so curious, if you could talk about a little bit about, you said there's a difference now being a student versus now being a professional there. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think so many people can relate to that. What you said, selling your actual book, selling yourself there was quite a different experience.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's funny. I like would I call myself a professional? But yeah, it felt so, I mean, it didn't feel so different in that, I was there and, I think the reason why people keep going to AWP is for the conversations, and it's also for seeing people you love, seeing other poets and other writers in the world to congregate. But yeah, I think I was just thinking of when you go to AWP, you think about every other AWP you've ever been to. And yeah, every other one I've been to, I was either working, I used to work for a literary magazine, or I've been a student in an MFA. And so it felt weird to be not tethered to like a specific institution and be tethered to my book instead. Yeah.
More absolutely. No, and it's write us again. What does AWP stand for? It's blanking right now.
Association of Writing Programs.
Yeah. It's a big
conference. Yeah.
Big conference for writers, poets, all that good stuff. No, but that's so cool. Coming back, and yeah, thanks so much for sharing a little bit about that. Now tell us a little bit, where is your location currently? Where are you based out of currently right now?
Yeah, I am talking to you from LA, but I am based in Brooklyn full time, Brooklyn, New York. Yeah, that's where I'm in the world.
That's what's up. Tell us a little bit. We've had folks from the podcast from Brooklyn, Harlem, the whole New York tri-state area. They always brag about how it's such a good place for spoken word and poetry. Would you definitely agree with that?
I would. I feel like it's before I moved there, I was like, it can't be that much more vibrant. I mean, I wouldn't, put it in a hierarchy, but I was like, everybody said there's a lot of writing there, but like, is that true? And I have indeed found that to be true. There's always a reading to go to. People are always coming through town to do readings, and yeah, and like all the schools and programs there on creative writing. There's a lot of students in creative writing from high school, college, and onwards. So yeah, I feel like that's definitely true.
Absolutely. Now tell us, you're not from Brooklyn, New York. Now, obviously you said you moved. Where was your childhood? Where were you born and raised in?
Yeah, well, I grew up in like northeastern Massachusetts, not far from Boston, but like if you know Lowell, Massachusetts, I live in that pocket of like kind of post-industrial mill towns. It's on the border of Massachusetts and New Hampshire. So that's where I spent, the full 18 years of growing up. My parents moved around a little bit, but yeah, I was really there.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit. Would you say at that age, when growing up there, did poetry find you, or did you find it kind of later in life as you went on to school Rutgers, all that stuff, or did poetry find you in that smaller town there?
I think it found me early on. Yeah. Maybe not. I remember writing poetry when I was in elementary school, but I think writing in
Mm,
general found me when I was a child. I'm one of those people who's kind of always known that I want to be a writer for whatever reason, and I've always known that.
mm,
And it took me a while to realize that not everybody just knows when they're like 8 years old that the thing they want to do actually is going to be the thing that they end up doing.
yeah.
And yeah, so it definitely, I think I come from a household of a lot of storytelling. My dad is definitely a storyteller, and I've just been writing probably mostly stories. I wrote a lot of stories when I was younger, and that has just followed me through college and onwards. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it you know, you mentioned your dad's a storyteller. Was your family super supportive, seeing that you knew what you wanted to do from such a young age? Were they definitely helping push you, or were they kind of a little bit more against it? What was their kind of mindset and process when you, or did you ever tell them you wanted to be a writer? How did
Mm.
was that ever even a conversation?
The age old question. Yeah, were your parents cool with it? I think they always knew that I was inclined towards writing. That was always a thing that I naturally excelled at, like in school. Like I think, math and science I could do it, but I really had to work for it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that this kind of like, I wouldn't say it's natural because that at some point it happened, it happened for me too, but I think they saw that it made sense to me.
Mm,
Um, and there were various guidances to be like, do you really want to do it? It's not the easiest life,
yeah,
And so I think
yeah.
there were some questions around that, which I appreciate that I've like taken some of those questions into like forming my life and my career. But yeah, I knew going into college I was going to study English. I knew I was going to write, and after college, it kind of felt like one thing kept on leading to another, and I kept on making decisions towards this path, and so somehow I've ended up where I am now.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, kind of let's talk a little bit more about ending up where you are now. Now, your debut poetry collection, Return, and you're gonna, after I ask this question, I want you to tell me how to properly pronounce that.
Oh yeah.
Won a Nightboat Poetry Prize and will be published in 2023. So this year, you're one of the first people I've ever met. You've already won a award for work that has yet to be published yet. That is crazy and insane. So tell us a little bit about that.
It is crazy and insane. Yeah, I'm very much in that in between period. My book is actually it's printed and it's done, but it's not technically released or published until April 25th, but that's in a month. So I'm really in the in the publicity phase, I guess you could say, or just really doing like trying to get the word out about the book. And um, yeah, I sort of still, it sounds cliche, but I still kind of can't believe it.
Mm.
This thing that you've worked on for a long time, and um, various various things have like pulled it to this stage. Um, some chance, some work, all of the above. But yeah, it's coming out. It's called it's like a dual Chinese and English title. It's called Hui. But people who don't speak Chinese, it's great to refer to it as Return. The character um, is the Chinese character for Return. So um, yeah, it's very, I feel strange. Yeah, that's the place I'm at with it.
Really, tell us a little bit about, I mean, so many people, it's like publishing a book or in poetry specifically or whatever. I mean, it's really, it's, you know, your debut poetry collection, especially, that's kind of like, it becomes like your child. What was the kind of process so far been like that? Also, I'm curious, is it bilingual? Is it both written in Chinese as well as English, given the title?
Yeah, I'll answer the language question first, which is that it's written predominantly in English, but there are various poems that are looking at the Chinese character. So there's, questions of linguistics in the book, and so there, you'll read a poem in English, and there might be a Chinese character to name a place or
Hmm.
a thing. But some more kind of there's some poems that are all in Chinese, but they're kind of like interested in the visual aspect of Chinese characters. But yeah, it does. I started the book probably now. I think the oldest poem in the book is about 7 or 8 years old.
Wow, my
Um,
goodness, wow, yeah.
yeah, but the predominant, like most of the poems are probably I wrote from 2017 onwards while I was in my MFA. And then I worked on it a bunch while I was in the years after the MFA. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of everything. It spans kind of a small but decent portion of my life. And yeah, I feel really close to it still, and yet also feel a level of like narrative distance from it at this point. I've
Yeah.
looked at it so much.
Yeah.
Actually did something not weird. I just yesterday actually I decided to sit down and read the whole thing in book
Mm.
form for the first time, and that was really interesting. I felt, yeah, it was really like, just to like be like it's an object in the world,
Yeah. Yeah.
and also to kind of ground myself as it's gonna be put into the world, really ground myself in what it is, because I think it's easy to kind of get far away from that, especially in the editing and the
Yeah. Yeah.
publishing process. Yeah.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about, again, I'm just so fascinated when you found out you won a Nightboat Poetry Prize for it prior to, does that add for you, does that add maybe some increased pressure for it already being acclaimed and award, or does that kind of ease you into it, having already a prize under your belt for your debut before it's technically been released yet? How does that does that change up the game a little bit for you, or do you feel just fine with that?
Um, I think I'm still forming my relationship to that question and answer, but I think no matter what it is that, yeah, I receive, whether it's, a poem acceptance in a magazine or, this prize, it's obviously first excitement and joy. And also
Yeah.
I always have a thing of like, did they read the right thing? Like, did they,
Oh man.
or I'm like, like, how's their judgment? So I think I
Mm,
still have that skeptic in me that I think immediately has to pull back to be like, okay, what is it?
yeah.
What is this joy that I'm feeling over this, um, this accolade, which I think is complicated in the poetry world, what an accolade
Yeah.
is or what a prize does. But yeah, I don't think it ever gets. I feel like there's a place in my brain that I'm like trying to form a thought on it. Like I feel like there's a place in my brain that kind of initial like that the bigness of the thing goes, because
Mm,
in order for me to continue creating, I almost can't process that.
yeah, sure, yeah.
You know.
No, that's totally fair. Now tell us a little bit though too. You said 7 years. One of the poems are as old as 7 years. Did you find this a process where it took you some time to kind of release those poems to the world to finally everything collecting together to make this debut? How many years in the making, I mean, has this been for you now to come to this debut book?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always thought of myself as someone who wants to take time, and sometimes to my detriment, I'm like overly deliberate about every decision that I make. And so I think for a time I really, and in the broad scheme of things, I started my MFA in 2017 and my book is being released in 2023, that's like, people wait a lot longer. And
Yeah.
so I still consider myself really lucky that I'm with it like in this timeline. That this thing I created came out like pretty promptly after I felt like it was done. And so uh yeah, but I think especially in the beginning, I was really wary of not publishing before I felt like I had found my own footing in this like
Yeah.
abstract thing of what my poetic voice was, which I still don't really know, but
Mm.
but really feeling like I knew that every poem, without being too precious about it, but every poem that I was putting into the world, I felt like was representative of either my interests or who I was at the time writing it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the timeline, when I count back, I'm like, oh yeah, that is many years, and also I'm glad I didn't rush. I didn't
Yeah.
rush the process. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's completely. I think it's an interesting thing. It's sometimes I remember there was a quote I heard to go fast, go slow.
Mm.
So like slow down everything to make sure that you can complete everything with quality in the way you'd want to do it. But no, I think that's a beautiful thing to know about yourself, especially early on with your art and your writing. You know what? I'm just so curious too. It's as I read your bio. You've been awarded fellowships. Recipient of a Pushcart Prize. That's huge. For you, I mean, I'm so curious. You have a very kind of relaxed feeling. You know what I mean? You're not a braggadocious person. You seem very humble by these things. I'm so curious for you. I mean, what do accolades like that really even mean to you? Winning these types of prizes, winning these types, even before your debuts even out, already winning awards. For you, have you reconciled even what some of these what these things have these huge accolades, what they mean to you?
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that compartmentalization is definitely part of it, but yeah, I mean, obviously, like in an ideal poetry world, there would be like everybody would win the prize. I don't know. I think like for if I'm like zooming out, I think for writing and for art making,
Mm.
the thing that would make it better for everybody is that there wasn't anything to like. I think it's important to strive for goals and strive for things, but and that is like what keeps you writing, but I think that writing would be better if there wasn't that. I kind of, yeah, I definitely believe in that as an idea, but I also understand it's like unrealistic. I think a lot of for me, like I think about this thing that my artist friend Casey Maddox once told me, which is that creates he creates a piece of art in order to make the next thing, and so
Mm.
he wants to finish he wants to finish the painting or the sculpture or whatever it is, so, and he learns something from that to move to the next thing,
Mm.
and that is kind of the most important part of the process for him. And that is kind of how I think about my poems, which is that I want to solve something for myself when I write the poem, and I want to, so then I can learn from it and move on to the next poem. And I think part of that process for me of getting off of the poem is publishing, and I think actually publishing helped me to be a little bit less precious about each thing.
Mm.
Like I used to be like, this poem is the best thing I've ever written, and I'm
Yeah.
never going to write anything better.
Mm.
And so I was really wary of putting it into the world unless it was absolutely perfect. But now for me, it's like, okay, it has a level of polish, or I feel good about the argument that the poem is making. I want to put it into the world, and it might change even after. I think,
Mm.
you know, a mentor of mine once told me, like, it can look different in your book, even if it's online in a different way, or, in a print publication in a different way.
Mm.
And so I think it's helped me just, I used to just be like, okay, I've just got to send out the poems that are done. and then I can think about the next thing. And it helped me to create a level of distance with my poems that I think was healthy. Um, yeah. And then with like, some of the like Pushcart, you're like, it feels like you throw it into the ether and somebody hears it. And obviously, I'm proud of the poem that got put in the Pushcart. And also I'm like, there is a level of like serendipity in that. And, um, everybody's writing at a certain level, and somebody, that poem speaks to somebody, and that's what happens. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind as well.
Absolutely.
For me, at least, yeah.
No, you said something there that really touched me. It was everything kind of, you're building everything to get to the next piece of your art. So everything that you're creating is, or at least what your friend told you, everything that they're creating is to get to the next piece. I think that's such an amazing thing to think about, because it helps you really kind of realign your vision, instead of constantly aiming for maybe an award or prize, or maybe validation that none of us will ever achieve in this lifetime or the next lifetime, because it's just not really possible.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. It's kind of always an evolution of keeping yourself, hey, I'm just trying to get better. I'm just trying to be the best me. I'm just trying to keep it in a cycle. I'm just trying to be better than I did yesterday. And I think that's such a great way to look at your art, because it's so hard. I mean, it's really hard to be a writer. I mean, there's a more likely a chance that no one ever will see your writing, and things like that. So kind of always having that self-assurance that, well, I'm just in this for me to do better than I did before. I think that's such a beautiful way to really think about things.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. Yeah.
For you, I'm so curious too. Where do you find your inspiration for writing? Where's a lot of your kind of ideas flow? Where does that come from for you?
A few different places. I think I feel like poetry is very much, I feel like I have to access a kind of specific lens on an inner world, or my inner world, in order
Mm,
something to come out. And so sometimes that just means I have to like sit. I haven't done this in a while, but sit at the page every morning for like 20 minutes. And
yeah.
over time, um, that practice helps me to access that voice. And also a lot of it is just like sitting on the train.
Mm,
I wasn't really commuting during the pandemic, and I've gone back to teaching and the long commute, and just it's interesting when you're being, yeah, when you're just like sitting and observing how much more comes in. And so that's been, yeah, it's been interesting, that kind of like mundane reality. And it's almost like you have to make it more interesting. And so then that poet brain, or like poet filter, kind of enters my brain, and I start to see things a little bit differently.
yeah.
Yeah, I pull a lot from just from walking around.
Yeah.
And beyond, like, I think for imagery, that's specifically where that comes from. And then I also do a lot of, I'm someone who researches a lot when I write. So I think when I'm reading historical texts or theory texts, and like working through problems, like
Mm,
intellectual problems, that often is a really good jumping off point for me.
absolutely. Do you find yourself, you're just kind of more of you find your inspiration just as a conscientious observer of life every day? Yeah.
Yeah, and then like how that then enters, the problem that I'm trying to solve. Like often the intellectual problem I'm trying to solve is just sitting next to me on the train, and
Yeah.
so that intersection maybe is where it happens.
Absolutely. Now tell us a little bit. Now you said you also teach. Do you teach writing poetry?
I do, yeah. I've taught composition, I've taught creative writing generally, but this semester I'm mostly teaching just poetry.
Nice. For you, what is I mean, it's always, because when I do any type of workshop, it's always such a different kind of mindset being an artist teacher as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to maybe someone that you're just trained in teaching. For
Mm-hmm.
you, what's it like being an artist teacher, teaching your students? What is the kind of what is that relationship with yourself, with your students like?
I've actually never, I mean, I've thought about this a lot, but I've never been asked to articulate it. So thanks for asking. Yeah, I mean, I think before, I don't know if you felt this way when you first started teaching, but um, I think I was really trying to protect
Mm,
my relationship to the writing when I was teaching. So I think I wasn't as well, I was also new to teaching, and I was young, so I think I needed to kind of posture in a specific way.
yeah.
And I think the way that my teaching or pedagogy has evolved is starting to think about, because I was really just seeing like the cliche thing of I was like learning with my students, and so that's kind of more how I lead now, where I think, especially when you have the student that looks at you for a real answer
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yeah,
to
yeah,
to an impossible question, right? Because
yeah,
there's no question in poetry that's actually answerable.
yeah,
Um, yeah, really just leading with like, well, I don't know, or
yeah,
like I haven't read that text. There's like hundreds of hundreds and hundreds of poets I haven't even like touched, thousands I haven't even touched.
yeah.
So yeah, definitely leading with that kind of um, lack of barrier, but yeah, and I think in that process, I've also started to think more about, talking about process while I teach,
Mhm.
because that's so different for everybody. And that's ultimately what is actually going to be your takeaway from learning about writing. And
Yeah.
so then sort of feeling okay, being like, okay, asking somebody like, what's your process? And also being able to share a little bit of what my own process is with my students. I think it's a really new thing for me in the past few years.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have a similar experience in terms of like knowing that, hey, I don't know everything. I'm not even gonna pretend. I'm gonna come into it with we're gonna learn, you're gonna learn from my students will learn from me and I'll learn from my students as well.
Yes.
I
Yes.
definitely have that kind of same mentality. No, that's very interesting. For you, kind of do you see yourself, I mean, continuing just teaching poetry, like a dedication to that for the rest of your career as well?
That's the question. I would love to. I like really love teaching,
Yeah.
and um it's yeah, I just love it. And it feels really um I've worked at it, but it feels like, something aligns there for me.
Mm,
But it's hard, like
yeah.
I've been an adjunct for a bit now, and I've tried to like try different things, different freelance things, and then I always I always get pulled back to that semester schedule. So yeah, it's something I'm really contending with now. Like I would love to. And yeah, just trying to figure out pathways there is where my current question of life.
For sure, yeah. No, no, it's definitely a question of the times.
Hmm.
Well, Emily, this has been such an amazing conversation so far. And as we're wrapping up, I do have one last final question for you. We ask everyone on the Poet Speaks podcast. Tell me, why do you need to get your words out?
Well, I think well, first of all, I want to acknowledge like the labor that goes into this podcast. I know that, I'm like sitting here and it's cute. We're having a great conversation and it's great for me, to be asked questions, but also just like on the back end, I'm sure you do an enormous amount of work and, because you love poetry. And so just wanted to acknowledge that. And thank you for inviting me on.
Absolutely.
Um, but yeah, I've actually been thinking about this question a lot.
Wow.
Because, in teaching college age students, I've been um yeah, like being brought back to that part of me that at that time, and also in the years later being like, you know it's processing emotions, it's really like um letting it all out on the page and understanding my like emotions by writing them, which I think is still true, and very valid. And it was really important for me to kind of move through poetry that way. And also now I'm trying to think of a way, like I don't want to just write when I'm not in a good way. Like that's not something to strive for myself at this time. And so really thinking instead of like channeling emotions or like processing emotions, but towards like enacting the
Mm.
emotions on the page. So how can I use the poem to enact a process, or how can I use the poem to or form, like poetic form, to kind of show an understanding of emotion or experience or history. So that's kind of more where I'm at, kind of in a yeah, I wouldn't say it's like a solving a problem phase, but really like allowing the form to move first,
Hmm.
and then the
Yeah,
emotion to follow. Whereas it used to be a little bit different for me, or a little backwards for me. But yeah.
absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful. No, I love that a lot. And tell us, what is the rest of the year looking like for you? Obviously, your debut poetry collection is coming out. Any other things that you want to tell us that are happening for you this year, as well as where can we find all of your amazing work? So maybe some social media sites, website links, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm compiling a just like list of readings for April, May, and going into June. You can find that at emilyleeluan.com/events. And you can also find my book currently for pre-order there, but also just to have it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to releasing the book. I have so much anticipation over it. Waking up in the middle of the night, like, but what if?
Yeah.
And also really looking forward to, feeling what it's like
Yeah.
after and the summer that follows. And yeah, like learning to celebrate myself in that too. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's 2023. I feel like the next month will I feel like I just need to get through the next month, and then the rest of 2023 can start for me.
There we go. Okay. All right. Well, we are looking forward to that. And everyone, Emily's links will be down below, whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on, in the description box. Emily's links will be down below, down there. And best
Thank
of
you.
luck, Emily. I'm sure the book will do amazing everywhere, every place, every list. Again, thank you so much for being a guest on the Poet Speaks
Thank
podcast.
you.
Absolutely. And thank you to Emily again, everyone. Go check out all of her work. All her links will be in the description box below. Everyone, this is the Poet Speaks podcast. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time. Bye-bye.